Okay, wonderful. So I am delighted to be joined by Narsanna Koppula. He is the CEO at Aranya Agricultural Alternatives, a permaculture international institute. And he has been a permaculture practitioner and leader for many, many years now, over 2 decades. And several members of the Terra community have recommended Narsanna and have taken permaculture design courses at Aranya Ag Alternatives. And so it's really a delight to be able to welcome you here to share a little bit more about your permaculture farming practices and knowledge sharing, and sort of how this applies to mitigating climate change. And so we're delighted to hear from you. I'll turn it over to you, Narsanna.
Okay. Okay, namaste, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very privilege to have this kind of people with me today, and it's very happy to be with you, being a group like you, Terra.com.do. Yeah, I'm not much familiar with many groups, but they know about me a little bit. So today I'm very happy to share what are the more than the I think topic and subject. I think is the more in my language, little maybe different because my accent is Telugu. I'm a regional language. So any confusion or any accent is you feel not convenient, just comfortable. Just please, you ask some questions. I try my best to give some answers if I know. Otherwise, I'm very open to share my knowledge and open to learn from you as well. I think that is the advantage in with this kind of Zoom and webinar things. Okay, so yeah, nice to see you. Good morning, everyone. I hope we are already on time. I think already 7 minutes paused. So I'll try my best to put it in a very simple way, not just as a very complicated. The subject itself is complicated. I think how people can understand the climate change and carbon sequestration and how this permaculture way you can will try to restore the challenges which we facing today in agriculture and outside in our practices in a day-to-day life. I think as far as I'm concerned, I'm Narsanna Koppula. I already, Eleni already introduced me. I am the first person, first generation person did course PDC with Bill Mollison, and he was my teacher, first teacher in 1987. I did my course with him in India. And then my second teacher was Robin Francis, both are from Australians. And from India, my guru, my Dr. Venkat, he was the person who almost all it transformed entire his way of life into permaculture. I think it's a permanent agriculture. So this permanent agriculture, for me, I understood. I think there are a lot of definitions as such. But as far as my knowledge is concerned, the permaculture is a response, is a design science. I think is the design system. I think the designing is not forms. Designing is our mindset, designing our thoughts, designing our approach. Then you come to the form. Form is the last resort. I think is not a first. Designing our form is not a design. I think designing our mindset, our thinking, and our thinking. I think that is where exactly I make it. The permaculture is a response and is an alternative way of life based on the cooperative relationship or non-exploitative relationship with the nature. I think it is not supposed to do any damage, any destruction to the nature. How best you can do with the thing, I think you work with the nature rather than against. I think there's a simple definition of mine, because this is where exactly I am trying to do with some permaculture activities and concepts with the rural community of women. That's about my 3 decades of my experience with the women in India. I have been working on small and marginal farmers and landless poor as well, not only just land. I think that we talk about agriculture, those who have land, but our question today, challenge world over, what about the landless? I think this is one of the biggest question in front of us, like India. I think this is most of the people that do not have land. I think what is your solution for this kind of things. But I am not going to deal about the thing, but in this light of these concepts, and when I did 1987, I did my course. In 1999, I registered an organization called Aranya Agriculture Alternatives, because Aranya, I coined that word just because we have to learn from nature. I think that's where exactly I can correlating with my today climate change and the forest. So if you learn from forest, I think what is the problems today we are facing, how we can overcome, not entire thing. I think we can get some of the solutions if you observe nature. I think I don't want to get into the more details of everything, but theoretically and topic wise, you know many things, but I put it two things. How this agriculture is contributing to this climate. The climate change, I never much use. Climate crisis is very common, but I say it is a climate chaos is going on. The climate chaos, how you understand? The climate chaos today is, I think the agriculture is, there is really it is contributing some amount to the climate change. But I think we have to do not ignore the facts which are around us, not only in agriculture, I think around us. I think what is happening around which environment we are living since many years, since many decades, what is happening to that. And we stopped talking about blaming the industrialist. I think the industry people, I think how the climate got changed and what is their contribution, how they damaged the whole environment because of their emissions. I think that's one of the pollutions and effluents. I think that is the first environment we learn in books, and our experience talks about they did their portion, they did their the amount of the damage happened, but we are also become responsible for that. I think this is where exactly how we can link that. I think the industrialization and the mechanization, I think how it is contributing, we know, every one of us, we know very well. But what are the solutions? In permaculture, I put three things very openly. One is agriculture. Next is your tree planting, otherwise perennial cropping systems. And third is your localization. These three topics I wanted to use in this. And more than the theoretical, I want my experience in these my 3 decades, what I'm trying to do this. At that time, when I started my PDC, when I started my journey of permaculture, this word was not there. The climate change was not there. I think it's not particularly kind of India, it was not there, that word. But then only the permaculture is started. But we cannot give exactly the permaculture, the climate change, but towards that direction, we did a lot of work that I wanted to share few things in my entire my work. So coming to the agriculture, I think agriculture is the not a natural, unnatural. That we have to accept that fact, because the simple, all elements are natural, but except your labor is unnatural. So just because of that element, that factor, it has become unnatural. So since agriculture itself is unnatural, definitely unnatural things will contribute something to their climate change. I think when we are responsible for this agriculture, this kind of crops, this kind of mechanization, this kind of seeds, this kind of chemicals, this kind of agriculture practices, I think we are responsible. We have to reverse it. That is possible through permaculture. You apply those principles, and the ethics, you are very clear. The principles are many, but ethics are 3. There's the care of earth, care of people, and fair share, otherwise future care, whatever you call it. But you have to give back to those about 2, the principles, earth care and people care. Definitely your climate change part of it is inclusive. I think we cannot totally put exclusive, nothing to do with the climate change. But these ethics are almost all, it will address number of issues related to the climate change. And before climate change is an individual change, his attitude is the reverse, and attitude is important towards the nature. What is our approach to the nature? What is our attitude to the nature? So in this light, and agriculture is one of the very, very key, because that is the only source of the food we thought. No, permaculture give a different definition. There is no definition for the food. A food is which satisfies your hunger is a food. Need not to do agriculture, need not to till the land, need not to deep plow, need not to use the mechanization. heavy machines on the putting on the things. I think this is the fossil fuels which we are using today is a high amount of because of the mechanization. I think that is where the compaction started. I think there is no source to go water, whatever the water, rainwater we are getting, there is no source of going into the soil at all because we make it totally compacted. In this light, I think I'll put it exactly the agriculture is that since there is no definition for food today, how this climate has got changed over a period of 30 or 40 years. I think you are clearly, we are able to see number of changes have come because of this is as a result of our all wrong practices. And today the agriculture is, I think is as such, agriculture is the word which we are using only to grow the food. Food may be different manners, not only the ways you can produce food, but this is a way what we are doing today is wrong. I think it is proven. I think that is where we are facing problems today. I think just you have to try to think, rethink. I think the 4 R's are not impossible. I think your 4 R's are we reuse, refuse, and your reduce and recycle. I think before these R4s, I think you have to, before that R4s, you have to put rethink. I am adding one more R to it, rethink. Agriculture as such is a fruit production, source of food production. I think that is not only there. Is a plants also your food production. Your perennials also food production. So how you eat, what you eat, you make it is a way of life. That's where you need not to till the land. You need not to send the open up entire soil and deep plow. You are sending a lot of carbon from the soil and you are sending it to atmosphere. You are adding, you are contributing a lot of things to the carbon already adding. That is adding to the carbon more and more. So that is not meant for agriculture. I think there is a agriculture without adding your carbon, you can do agriculture. There are systems. That is where exactly permaculture talks about the perennial cropping systems. Perennial thinking is required more than agriculture. I think what is that perennial thinking? We have to look for the long term. And how we can reduce, how can we mitigate at the same time, what are the cropping systems we need on this planet Earth? I think how we can produce our food without disturbing, without destruction of your soils. I think that is where exactly the agriculture has to be rethink. That is the number one. Number two is your plantation. The trees are the one of the sources, the best way to bring down your climate. I think this is where exactly you have to start your tree planting is one of the source of your carbon sequestration. Today, we are facing a lot of problems in annual crops. I think annual crops versus perennial crops. I think if you compare, if you do this, I think you find a best solution to how we can cut down these annual crops. Slowly, we can move to the perennial cropping system. Perennials are much more potential to have your produce your food without disturbing, without adding any contributing to your climate. You can grow your food, not in the form of only grains, in the form of leaves, in the form of bark, in the form of nuts, in the form of aerial, in the form of your ground tubers, in the form of your roots, in the form of nuts and fruits and seeds and whatnot, everything. But you don't have these annual crops. I think it's destroying our entire ecosystem more than it is need more and more your non-renewable things. I think is cannot be renewable. Moreover, we are using totally depend on a automobile and your entire use of fossil fuels. I think this kind of approach we have to live. That is only possible through your understand the perennial cropping systems. That's what the Smith used, I think, is the perennial permanent agriculture. When he coined that word, everybody got shocked. What is a perennial? What is a permanent agriculture? That's where exactly permaculture added a lot of things to this permanent agriculture. I think it's encompassed with a lot of other things to this permanent agriculture. Today is a world over, big movement is going on, not just whatever the word could be. It's a just label, but the vision of how you want to reduce your the challenges which you are facing in agriculture and food. And these kind of things is a permaculture is forefront. I think it's leading to a lot of solutions. I think it's getting a lot of solutions. I think today we need to think about not only food is the only agriculture, there are tree crop. tree agriculture we done, as a perennial agriculture you call it. I think best we have to think, and you do start on these lines, definitely you will find solutions. That's why Aranya is, I think, is 11.5 acres of land, out of which I put only 2 acres. It's a 8,000 square meters I put under agriculture and the regular crops, the staple food. My staple food is here local is a jowar and roti, sorghum otherwise. So this is a staple food I'm growing because it's a very symbiotic relationship with the water and seed and the food. What we are eating, that's a simple staple food. But I put my 90%, 85% of land under perennials. I think that's my food source. Not only my source of food, also for microbes, also for the animals, also for the life which is living on this planet Earth, which is living in my farm. I think the food for everything, not food for, but your agriculture is only food for you. If you are perennial thinking, perennial crop system, food for everything, all life beings. The life being, I think, living things which is on your farm, I think there is a source of food is very, very important, possible. That kind of things we have to think of. And third is this is a localization. I am trying to put my thing, I never sold a single produce of my farm. I'm producing abundance. I think that is where abundance word come from, the not for just for markets, market for abundance for your life which is living on your farm. The animals, the birds, the trees, the plants and microbes and people. I think the animals includes, that is the abundance we wanted, not the abundance word as such. I think this abundance we have today, we localized rather than selling out. I don't have a right to talk about agriculture when I am not able to take care of my people here. Because those who have created this asset, that they have a right to eat, right to consume, not exporting. What is exporting and selling out? I think you're violating your boundaries, your ethics. If you start sending out, I think that is where exactly permaculture is more keen. You localize. So local resources are important when you are talking about, and you localize your food as well. I think this is a life when you are transporting from one place to another place, it's unethical. It's not ethical at all. A life which is being transported place to place is unethical. I think you make it ethical by localizing the food. Just you forget, I think, how far you are transporting. I think the transportation again based on your lot of things to be, you have to bring in. I think there's all fossil fuel you have to use and transportation and lot of pollution, and you are not making food available to the local people. You are sending it out of the boundaries, which is unethical. So that is why you localize, you more ethical, and you are making it to, you need not to use any transport and labor, and more the local people will get the resources. I think when you are talking local resources, local people also important, local marketing is important, and localization is very, very important. We can cut down all the resources which we are talking today is creating a lot of problems and challenging to the climate. I think we can reduce those kind of things by localization of your crops and food within the itself. So that's why in Aranya, we tried our best to do that with the policy making. I think we have demanded the government to don't put a generic or general rule for entire country, your public distribution system, and distributing few food grains to the poor people in the country from transporting to one place to another place. That is causing a lot of damage to the nature. There, the fossil fuels, I think that is your all greenhouse gases which you are talking about, the carbon dioxide in the air is contributing and more adding to your problem today. I think you cut down that by localization. That's why we demanded to the governments, local governments, you produce locally, distribute locally. Why you want to transport for all the 100, 200 miles of places is the food miles. Food miles is unethical. I think you have to think yourself what best way you can do it. I think this is where exactly the permaculture way of thinking is definitely some of the, not entire, is the permaculture is not the only solution to this problem. I think is one of the solution. I think permaculture is a few systems which we already evolved, already got answered for some of these questions. Aranya is a very good example for the local people. I think the people are ready to come and see my women, which their small land holdings, land labor, landless labor, they are looking at our places. I think they are trying to planting trees. I think they are using the local traditional wisdom, and the food sovereignty is one of the issue today. We are how much we can do it locally. Slowly, people are moving to that direction where they can get their food without disturbing, without contributing any damage to this climate change, which you are facing a lot of problems. I think there's a planting trees and using the local wisdom and tilling the land little bit, scratching, not the tilling as such, and planting trees more and localize marketing, and they have to sell their products and make their food locally, not transporting, not getting things from outside. I think these kind of strategies and Aranya, we are trying our best to do some plantation and the bringing people and with the farmers and the bureaucrats and policymakers and the students and children. I think the all walks of life people are today is looking for this kind of practices on Aranya. This is 11.5 acres. Today we are the one of the best solutions we are able to get since till 20 years. My journey started in 35 years ago. My farm is a 20-year-old farm. I never felt it is something is not creating is a very good clean environment, and I didn't burn single thing on my land. Everything soil is so much of love. I think it take any kind of biodegradable into the soil. I think that is enough. Don't burn anything, don't throw anything, you put it back. Soil is so generous to take into any amount of thing. That is your carbon dioxide is it is a storing. I think that is the biggest storage, biggest bank. Your soil is the biggest bank of the carbon dioxide. You put back to the soil, soil is ready to take any amount of carbon dioxide. That's the best way to store it, and humbly we have to use that resource as a one of the big absorber, sequestrator. The sequestration is very, very important, but this is agriculture is one of the topic of today. We talk about all agriculture burning and a lot of chemicals and a lot of water and a lot of pesticides we use. That is not important. I think we have to look at whatever you grow, put back into the soil, don't disturb much soil. I think this is the way we are trying to in Aranya. We tried our best to put a lot of things, and this some of the examples we can show if possible, as Sneha went out to see some of the thing. I think we can go and see some of the cropping patterns and how we develop the local things and what are the trees we are trying to grow, what is the combination, what is how we can mimic the nature without disturbing and growing all kinds of shrubs and bushes and herbs and creepers, vines, climbers all together. That is the ecosystem we have to looking for. That kind of definitely, if you have each area, if each village, each region has one or two farms like this, I think definitely that could try to the carbon sequestration issues, climate change, climate chaos, climate crisis. The words I think is we can reduce that usage of that word in few decades or another 3-4 decades. I think that is where my effort is going on. Try to whatever the work I have been done, I'm happy with that. Just will show some of the pictures while walking. I will try to show. Yeah, this is the Q&A. Any issues? I think we can start Q&A. Already is 8:58. Sorry for that. I took a little bit extra time. Doesn't matter, but I can manage to do my best. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that intro and great talk about what you're doing at Aranya, how it intersects with climate change and carbon sequestration. That was really, really interesting to hear. And yeah, I was able to see some of the crops that are out in the fields as I think Sneha was walking around. But yeah, I would love to just know a little bit more about what you are growing in the 80% of your land that is a food forest, and on the 2 acres that you mentioned that are maybe annual crops. Like what sorts of things are you growing?
Wow. Yeah, Sneha will keep going around it. I will talk to him. Both you can do it simultaneously. Yeah, I think that is a very important. I think on my Aranya farm, it is 11.5 acres. I started in 2098, 99 actual work I started. This is a permaculture. This is a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable is a fixation of boundary and live fence I started, and wind breaks, because that is one of the very great element and the farm which is stops a lot of reduction in the velocity of wind. I think that will save my soil, because in the summer, a lot of wind, and wind is one of the big culprit of taking over your topsoil. So I windbreak. In the windbreak is not just as a one species, multiple species. I introduced more than 13, 14 varieties of plants in the windbreak. I think the local species, not, I didn't introduce any exotic initially. Slowly after that, I started putting some of the things. Like in a windbreak, a lot of my local species are Pongamia, the teak, and Bahunia, leguminous. Most of them are my Gladicedia, and my almost all my ficus, and the neem, and the tamarind, and what else, and your casuarina, and the teak, and what else, and your Pitcalobium, and a lot of trees I planted. I think is the height wise basic different heights, because there are a lot of bushes and shrubs. I think a lot of sitafal and a lot of mangoes, all they are locally tropical plants, and they're all height wise. Just I planted a very stacked planting, very close planting. So height wise automatically they grown, they stopped, they did fantastic job for 20 years. I think they stopped my velocity. And inside I planted all the orchard of all trees by tropical, like is a pomegranate, and the pomegranate, and the sitafal, and your chiku is a sapota, and lot of citrus, lot of mangoes, lot of amla is gooseberry, and a lot of your kala jamun is a Syzygium cumini, and a lot of your tamarind, lot of moringa, a lot of your what is all fruit plants, almost all tropical fruit plants I plant. Sitafal, and a lot of your jack also I planted. I think these are the fruit plants. But very interestingly, I planted fruit plants. Most of the fruit plants, they don't come on their own unless you have to plant, and few fruit plants will brought by birds. But rest of the trees, only 40 to 50% I planted, but rest of the 40 to 50%, they brought by birds, animals, and the wind. That is the local seeds. I started and falling, and they started growing. That's the only theory I applied. Whatever the seed come into my farm, I never removed it. Hardly I can prune, otherwise I copies, otherwise I pollard it, but not removing anything. That is where the exactly the birds will get the local seeds, they throw it. I think there's a local ecosystem. The local ecosystem, the forest ecosystem starts. You have to respect. You have to be more careful to that species. You allow them, they will bring their friends. I think most of them, interestingly, they're all leguminous. Non-leguminous are only 40%. 60% my farm is totally leguminous. In that case, I think I need not to put any effort to make my compost, and putting to the soil, adding to the soil only that whatever the produce the trees dropping, the bark, the twigs, the leaves, and my nitrogen fixes, atmospheric nitrogen fixation happening through the nodule or through the roots into the soil. I think more than that, what do you want? I think the natural systems are already developed. My job is easy. Just my job is only observe and learning from nature. What is happening? That you spend, rather than working hard on the land, you put your effort to the learn from nature. That is where my equation started, to observe and learn lessons from the nature. I think rather than doing all wrong design, wrong work, and more work, avoid that. You put more effort to learn from nature. That's what I am doing. I think a lot of trees and a lot of grasses, different vines and climbers and vines, and a lot of herbs. The medicinal plants, the Indian context is a lot of people think about the medicinal. I think in my view, I think my point of view, everything is a medicinal, because we don't have any much information about those species. That's why you are not branding as a medicinal. Otherwise, every plant is a medicinal. Medicinal for whom? Always we think humans, which is a medicinal, there's a medicinal plants. But the soil medicine, the insect medicine, I think this is what you allow to the species which are able to grow on the land. Thus you observe the nature. She wants to exhibit her own functions. You give some patience to pay some attention to that. How does it exhibit? I think we don't have it. Our intervention will ruin the culture. I think more than the soil erosion, I think the cultural erosion is taking place. I think that cultural erosion is to be stopped. you observe nature, you try, you get your food. I'm not saying you have to obtain yield. That's one of the principle of permaculture. But the obtain yield is not a production. Obtain yield is a information also, skills also. The knowledge also obtain yield. The principle is very strong. I think we are obtaining, we are yield from observation. I think we are applying these principles every part of every section of area. What is I'm obtaining? What is how can put back to the soil, put back to my nature? I think that is our reciprocity. One of the second principle of Aranya permaculture we applied. I think the reciprocity is very, very important. In our every attitude, in every approach, the reciprocity is very important. And observe and interact. Observing, then what? Your interaction. What is the interaction with your nature? You intervene and interaction is different. So this is a intervention is not required. Interaction is required with the information, the observation interaction. I think this is some of the things on Aranya. I think a lot of annuals. Annuals also we are trying. A lot of mulberry, a lot of birds will come. And your Pithecanthropum, and your Sesbania grandiflora, and your Lucerne leucofolia, and your Albizia lebuck. And this is one of the your Bhaunia. And what else? I think a lot of trees are most of your Dulnex regia and the Glycidia sapium and your what else? And your Dismanthes and your pigeon pea. They're all leguminous. This many varieties of leguminous in the nature. I think that is there. There's the only capacity to absorb the atmospheric nitrogen. They're fixing it on the soil. That kind of plants it is there. That's the only source of your getting nutrition for the soil. You encourage more leguminous. At the same time, the birds which like you invite the birds and invite the animals, invite the insects, invite all your kind of microbes into the soil. That is you find out, you identify their needs, then you try for yields. Without identifying their needs, if you expect yield, that's unethical. So yields and needs are very, very important. The needs and yields are very, very important in our approach. That's why we did what is their need, we identified, then we started looking at the yields. The yields are very important, but without looking at the yields, we have a lot of animals. We have donkeys, cows, buffaloes, and a lot of chickens, and the natural birds. It's all domesticated. These are pets. But what about the undomesticated? And what we didn't pet, I think that when you provide that kind of environment, the ecosystem, definitely they will come to take their shelter, their food. I think that kind of environment is required, not your pets and your domesticated animals. In permaculture, as far as I think you don't depend on pets and domestication of animals. I think you invite animals naturally. I think they manure, they check the pest, they check the insects, and they check your fruits quality and the pollination. All these things are important, not just looking at the yield. Yield is this coming to your farm. Some birds itself is a yield. Why don't you think a yield? Yield is not only eating yield. No, yield could be anything. Your water, your moisture in the soil. There's one of the thing. In Aranya is a dry land, is a 650 mm rainfall. I think we have a lot of soil. Just I never use my tools to dig. I use my fingers as my tools. I think that's one of the indicator of your soil moisture. I think we need to remove the word tomorrow only for drinking. You can say water. Otherwise, you have to say it is the moisture. The word can be deleted after a few years. You may not see the water, physical water in any reservoir, any dams. You are going to see only moisture. We need moisture. Except humans and animals, they drink water. Except humans and animals, everything need moisture, not the water. I think that's what we have to look for. I think it's the rain-fed and agriculture. We have a lot of crops. I think Sneha might have shown some pictures. We go for local. The food pattern since ages. People are trying to grow their food and they made it staple food. Staple food is a symbiotic relationship between humans and seed and water and the soil. That symbiotic relationship is very, very important. When you introduce your local, the crops which you are getting from outside, you respect the local crops, you grow them. I think you get your nutrition. Nutrition comes from soil again. The soil you have to respect when you are doing this. A local seed, you have to use it. Local species, local soil. When is the soil is your local, your seed also should be local. Your water also should be yield within the soil. That is the local soil, local water, I say. I think this kind of the food security doesn't come from any friend. Food security should come from your soil, Food security come from your farm, not from having 100 bags, 100 tons of metric tons of food with you. That's not a food security. But food security should within the land. I think that kind of land we wanted, that kind of food security we wanted. Today we are food sovereignty we are talking about. Food sovereignty, again, the issue is the food sovereignty with, again, this is a problem. The food sovereignty has a more with the culture, more with the wisdom. I think that kind of food sovereignty we are looking for. I think today we have a lot of crops. We grow sorghum, the jowar otherwise. We grow chickpea. We grow lentil. We grow lateras. We grow linseed, oilseed, and we grow sesame. We grow all dolichos lab. We grow almost all your mustard. We grow almost all wheat, rain-fed. Wheat is not is a dew-fed. And we grow all your pulses like your green gram, black gram, and these are all your chickpea and your Bengal gram. Otherwise, we call it the lentils. And these many kinds of crops, we are in a small piece of land. I think that give the more diversified crops will bring lot diversified nutrition. That's where you make your staple food out of it. What you eat, I think that's your diverse food. You keep you healthy. I think not only just for food aspect, we are keeping the culture of local seeds, local land races. You are protecting, you are guarding, you are keeping those resources with you. You are the richest person in the world. But we lost today. We are working with the community and poor, small landholders, marginal farmers, women. I think they are one of the best. If you talk about, I am trying to put my in local regional language, how to reduce these climates, why it is happening today, what is the wrong gone with us, what is the wrong went with us. I think is the local seed and your plowing tools and implements and your crops and food habits and localization and transportation. I think these are all today we are facing problem. Deserts are getting flooding, heavy rains, downpours, and high rainfall has become deserts. I think what is this? I think why it is happening? I think what wrong went with us? What are the mistakes we have done? Can we rectify? Can we look it back? What is things? Smallly by started from small examples we are giving. We are showing Aranya is one of the example, and we are trying to put the same efforts on the small and marginal farmers, the saving local trees, local plants, local seeds, local breed, local animals. I think this is one of the localization is important. The culture also localizing and the food also localizing and transportation also local. Use the more bullock carts and not with the transportation of for far away places with the vehicles. Don't use much vehicular, which is a fossil fuels. I think slowly we are getting into the different directions. I think that makes a lot of sense. On Aranya, we are trying to grow all the kinds of papaya, lot of fig fruits, lot of mulberry fruits, lot of the balsa we are eating, and a lot of things. I think is the food crops will definitely give them more resilience. I think that is where the climate change, climate crisis which you are facing, we can reduce percentage. I'm not sure, but today we are healthy. I think there is no issues with the health, and moreover, that is we are happy. The happy food is getting is one of the issue with these kind of agricultural systems. And the thought process, how it is leading to the resilience at the same time sustainable way. I think slowly we are moving to a different level of understanding. Same examples we are going into the different level of with the community work. I think this Aranya is one of the best bank information resource to many people. I think this is where I am trying to my best to understand, make by growing, not just by talking. I think talking days have gone. Yeah.
Thanks for that. There's some clarifying questions in the chat here that I'm just gonna bring up. So one question from Manuel has had a few really good questions. So that he's read that a lot of land in India is not being farmed because of poor soil and lack of water access, but that permaculture can help grow plants in poor soils and places with lack of lots of water access. So I think he's wondering like, what crops can you grow in these poor soils that have lack of access to water, and how long does it take to establish, crops or trees in places where it might be difficult to get things established.
This is the question itself. It says is there are soil wise. I think the environment, you have to take into account three things. What is the rainfall, and what is the staple food? What kind of crops they are growing? What is the history of that land? Number one. Number two, I think no soil is bad and good. All soils are very good soils. Only poor or rich. Rich soil is a very black soils, or which is more moisture retention soils, are they called it a rich soil. Poor soils, there is no topsoil. Topsoil all got eroded. I think totally soil is very poor. So poor in what? Soil, or the organic matter, or the nutrition aspect. I think the poor soils can be developed by observing the local species. Already there might be growing something which can improve the same species, and slowly you have to convert into the agricultural land. You wanted to forest, what agroforestry kind of thing. I think you observe the local plants will help you to bring back the soil. It takes time, but you have to put a lot of efforts to put back, and you understand the local systems, what kind of crops they have been growing, or you wanted to do it agriculture, or you wanted to do forestry. The forest, food forest is one of the possible, that kind of soils. The plants can thrive much better than your agricultural crops. Agriculturals need more nutrition. Nutrition should be available for the plants and annual crops. But the trees, they don't depend on you. They depend on their own. Slowly it will get their own nutrition. Slowly they start growing. Over a period of time, you can start some annual creepers, some plants can be grown. But first, any poor soil, I think that has to be bring back the status where state of a good soil when you called it. I think just you have to take time. You try to understand the soil. I think you ask local people, they'll give some solutions. I think all soils are good. There is no bad soil at all. Definitely low rainfall areas to go for the rain-fed crops, and in the winter you have the dew-fed crops. But there is no soil is bad. All soils are good. Poor soils, you have to put extra efforts. Already good, the rich soils, you need not to put much extra. You try to start growing from the day one. The other poor soils, just you have to put some extra and get the crops. That is sure. I think the rainfall areas has an advantage, and high rainfall areas has a disadvantage also. So any disadvantage you think, you make it advantage. You work with those things. I think always I prefer trees and some creepers and some vines are possible. Otherwise, just you leave it and look at the local trees.
Yeah, it is amazing to just see how when you have a tree canopy and you are dealing with heat, for example, how much cooler it is for plants to grow beneath the tree in that shade, and therefore need less water because they're not evapotranspiring as much. And so I think it is something that is really exciting to see for yourself if you're able to get out and see this kind of multi-story cropping in action. It's really exciting. So there was another question from Rujuta about basically, is the theory behind permaculture to focus on plants that are native to that region? Yeah, and what? Yes, is that the answer?
Question. I'm not clear. What is that? What she's asking?
Oh, sorry. She was asking, is the theory behind permaculture to focus on plants that are native to that region?
Yeah, that is the permaculture. I think it's not only about the ecology we talk about, and more than that, the culture also is a important aspect. I think the permaculture is a perennial thinking, perennial cropping system, perennial thinking, perennial way of approach, long term as well. But why I'm using perennial is very normally we apply these perennials are only the rivers and natural systems we use for plant, perennial crops, perennial rivers like that. But perennial thinking also adding. I think always permaculture is more perennial thinking, perennial systems, perennial output. I think that is very important. The permaculture is today we are talking about.
Mhm.
Look for the long-term vision, just not short-term gains. I think that's why we are more into the trees. Definitely, trees are the your solve your problem. I think the forest is a future. That's one of the slogan of Aranya as well. I think today you have to change your attitude to food, and you have to start growing your own food. At the same time, you have to look for the need of the globe also, need of the people also. That's why always this will serve these three aspects, this purpose through only perennials. That's what I believe. Perennial crops are important, perennial thinking is required, but at the same time, staple food are already is there. Don't change your staple food. You keep with the staple food, slowly you are convert into the perennial food systems.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So we had another clarifying question from Manuel about what do you mean by soil medicine and insect medicine when you were speaking about that, like feeding the soil and feeding the surrounding insects.
Exactly,
So maybe
same.
just a
The
clarification.
always we talk about the medicinal plants, only humans medicinal, which we know medicine we talk about. Exactly, already you mentioned the feeding the soil is a medicine. Medicine is one of the healing power they have. That's all. All kinds of plants are is the medicine, insects, medicine for soil, medicine for the birds. I think that's what I mean to say. Not only human medicine. Yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, and we just got a great question from Darshini. What are some of the main barriers and challenges for increasing the adoption of permaculture more widely?
That is the as far as my experience, I don't know others, but is a principle, the ethics. Ethics is the biggest barrier, because the care of earth, we are all aware of care of earth. Care of people, not much taking care of people. I think there is the exploitative measures we have most, exploitative methods we have most of the time. I think there people are little hesitant to follow that. And the third is the fair share. Fair share is, I think, is future care. We don't have much a long-term vision. I think long-term benefit, we don't look at a shortcut ways we look for, and the short-term gains we look for. I think that is the biggest challenge. In the attitude has got changed. Today we are living in a capitalism or imperialism, both these colonialism. The colonialism the imperialism impels to capitalism today. I think that is dictating all our terms and conditions. I think just we have to be a little bit conscious about our society and our life system and our relationships and the human relationship. And these are very challenging for me to think about permaculture. There's a very in a different level, but basically people are already they're more into the agriculture. I think is the markets are dictating your terms and conditions. And today you go for the perennials and more ethical way and more sustainable way. This is one of the biggest, not barrier I cannot say. It's a barrier, more than the barriers, is one of the constraints to take it to this concept into different levels. But today we are facing, but I am enjoying with that. I think challenge is required. Otherwise, everything is smooth. You cannot work with any system. I think the barriers are there, but just I think you can think about your local systems, and you have to be a little more challenging. And definitely there are barriers. Without barriers, without there is no system get evolve. Yeah, this is my thing is more into the working with the kind of farmers, only the small and marginal farmers. I'm thinking are medium landholders and the rich farmers. We in India, three level farms are there. So for small marginal farmers, and I started just recently with the medium farmers as well, and the landless poor. What is the solutions through permaculture? What employment we can generate through culture and natural management, natural ecosystems, and otherwise natural resource management. I think how they can get the some revenue as well. I think I'm thinking this way also very, very challenging for me too today.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense. And yes, and I'm hopeful when I see more and more people taking permaculture design courses that they are being widely offered and hopefully spreading. And have you all, just out of curiosity, have you been able to offer in-person trainings more recently, or did you have to take a break during the pandemic?
No, we started it.
Yeah, we started it. Actually, we till 2013, I am not much into teaching, but after 2014, I started a lot of, we hosted international permaculture convergence. During that time, I started. I think now every month we have a PDC, but in pandemic, those time, I think I didn't conduct it for 6 months in first wave, second wave 3 months, but except that 9 months, I think since last 2015-16 onwards, every month there is a PDC in Aranya. We conduct courses already. Last July was started. I think there is a continuous PDC courses are there. A lot of demand, a lot of people are coming, and different walks of life people are attending. I think there's a very good sign for the future, and the young generation and the farming and non-farming community all together. I think it's a very satisfactory situation is prevailing here. Yeah.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, thanks for that update. Well, I will leave it open now for any, oh, we just got one other question. Let's see, from Chetan. How are government institutions, corporates, and NGOs helping to make permaculture less costly and accessible to all? How can we help? Great question.
Yeah, the governments are realized, because when we conducted national permaculture convergence and international permaculture convergence in India, in Hyderabad, I think the two governments which they know about permaculture, I think they are very pro to permaculture as well. I think they are all, India, very strong in organic movement and the natural, biodynamic farming, zero budget, and spiritual Vedic agriculture. A lot of other school of thoughts are there. But recently, since last 5-6 years, I think permaculture is one of the leading school authorities. Every government level know what is permaculture, and we are trying to take it to some of the lessons into their syllabus is an elementary school as well. I think they hosted a lot of workshops on their own. I think they invited us to host PDC courses with them. And some of the state governments have sent their officers to PDC courses. I think they sponsored some farmers to our courses, and they sponsored a lot of farmers to my conferences as well. I think this is a good sign. I think they're very pro. They know what is permaculture, what people will do it, how it is applicable to their regions. I think they realized, but they are thinking to include this also one of the school of thought in their government projects. And we will work with the government very closely to do some activities of permaculture. We'll apply permaculture principles and ethics in their activities as well, the programs. I involved, and Padma also involved, many government projects. I think that is possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, yeah, like you were mentioning about training young kids and getting food production to be a part of elementary school education is so crucial. I mean, most schoolyards in the United States that I've seen are just barren paved surfaces and buildings. And so having that opportunity through governments to create food producing spaces around where people live and work and learn is a really good pathway to making it more accessible and affordable for more people. So I love that suggestion. Let's see if there's any other final questions. Feel free to put them in the chat or come off mute and ask them yourselves. But yeah, I just really appreciate your responses and your time today, Narsanna. It's been wonderful to learn from you.
No, I'm always welcome. That is the only permaculture fraternity. That's all only I do it. More than that, what you asked, you asked me to share it.
Oh dear, you've frozen. I don't know if that's just for me. Is it frozen for other people?
His connection was fairly bad, so I think we lost him. Actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's possible that is the case.
A low bandwidth or something like that. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was starting to happen towards the end. So, okay. I guess we lost him, but, he mentioned in an email, he's happy to get in touch with anyone to follow up. So I'm happy to share that contact info and, yeah. Sorry, was someone going to say something?
Do you hear us?
Oh, hi, Sneha. Yes, I can hear you.
No, sorry, while just is some disconnection happened. So this.
Oh, no
just-
problem.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, Lenny, anything? Yeah, any questions? Anything already? And time, I think your, any questions, any specific, we'll be in touch.
Yes.
Anything?
I'm happy to get in touch if anyone has follow-up questions, but I think we're all set for right now. And thank you so much again and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
I think we lost him again, so.
Lost him again. Okay, well,
you.
that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you all for
You lost
joining.
him again. I just.
Okay.
Okay, take
Recording in
care.
progress.
Cheers, everyone.
I'm able to